My family told me to move into a nursing home because I was a burden. I packed my bags quietly. A week later, they got a letter from my lawyer, and their bank accounts vanished overnight. My name is Henry Miller. I'm 73. I keep my nails short, my shirts folded, and my promises even tighter. I'm a widower, a former carpenter from Ohio, a man who used to build porches that held whole families and all their laughter. I also raised one son, Mark. He used to sit on my workbench and hand me screws, counting them like treasure. I thought I taught him how to be steady and kind. I thought I did. Here is the highest point of this story, the sharp edge that cuts first. It was a Monday morning, exactly 1 week after my family told me I was a burden and that I should move into a nursing home. Sunlight slid across my son's kitchen like a slow golden knife. A thick white envelope lay on the table addressed to him and his wife, Mark Miller and Tara Miller, personal and urgent, from a law firm they didn't know. Tara's coffee steamed. Mark's thumbs tapped his banking app. I watched from the hallway because that was the only safe place I had left in their house. The moment Mark opened the letter, his phone buzzed again and again, like it was choking. He went still. Tara went pale. She opened her banking app too. Both of them stared and stared. Their checking, their savings, their rainy day fund. Even the little business account with a bright logo, they all showed the same number, $0. The letter shook in Mark's hand. Tara's cup rattled in its saucer. She whispered, "What did he do?" I closed my eyes and breathed slow. I didn't say a word. Not yet. Because that's where the blade sits in this story. A clean, cold moment when people who called me a burden felt the weight of what they had done. But I am getting ahead of myself. To understand why a lawyer wrote to them and why their money was suddenly gone, you have to step back with me to the beginning, to the quiet place where a bad thing starts. It began with a small sound. Not a shout, not a fight. A small, tired sound, like a drawer that won't close because it's too full. I had been living with my son and his wife for a year after my wife, Linda, passed away. Cancer took her in winter, and grief took the rest of us in pieces. Mark said, "Dad, come stay with us. We'll figure things out together." I believed him. I packed my toolbox and Linda's quilt and moved into their guest room with the green curtains. At first it was gentle. Tara would bring me tea. Mark would ask about the old shop. On Sundays, my granddaughter Emma, who is 8 and loves glitter, would paint my knuckles with nail polish and call it grandpa armor. I cooked. I fixed their squeaky door. I replaced the cracked tile behind the stove and rewired the porch light that kept flickering like a nervous eye. I thought, this is what family is, each of us filling a gap in the other. But grief is heavy, and money talks louder than love when you let it. Mark's startup wasn't doing well. Tara's hours at the clinic got cut. I still had Linda's life insurance and the money from selling our little blue house. All of it sitting in accounts I had opened years back, with tidy folders and sticky notes and passwords in a notebook Linda had decorated with daisies. I helped. That's what fathers do. I paid for a plumber when the basement flooded. I covered Emma's summer camp so she could learn to swim, because Linda had always wanted that. I put $25,000 into Mark's business as a short-term bridge, the words he used. We wrote it down as a loan with simple terms. No interest, just pay me back when you can. I didn't ask for collateral. He's my son, I thought. My own blood is the collateral. Weeks rolled into months, and the small sound grew. It was the sound of doors closing a little harder, of Tara's sighs getting longer, of my name being said like it weighed something. Some dinners felt like classrooms where I was the kid who got the answer wrong. "You should move more, Dad," Tara would say, not looking at me. "You leave crumbs everywhere," Mark added, staring at his phone. When I did move, when I swept, when I wiped counters and folded towels, they acted like the towels folded themselves. Kindness is loud when you don't get it. It becomes a ringing in your ears. One night, I heard them on the porch. The words came through the screen like mosquitoes, thin and mean. "We can't keep doing this," Tara whispered. "He needs more care," Mark said. "It's too much. He's slowing everything down. We have plans." I stood in the hallway barefoot, my hand on the doorframe. I thought of Linda's hands, small and warm, the way she used to pinch my ear when I talked nonsense. I thought of the day Mark was born, how I promised in the hospital that I would always carry him when he was tired. It took me a long time to go back to bed. The next day, after breakfast, they sat me at the table like a customer service meeting. Emma wasn't there. Tara had dropped her at school early. A brochure lay under Mark's palm. Willow Creek Care Center. It had pictures of green grass and an old man flying a kite, which told me it was a lie. Dad, Mark said, chewing the inside of his cheek. We've been talking. We think it's time. The house, it's not set up for you. We can't meet your needs. My needs? I asked. I need coffee and air and maybe a little respect. Tara didn't smile. You need medication management, social stimulation, daily monitoring. Willow Creek would be good for you. And for you? I asked. She looked past me. For all of us. Mark swallowed. We can't afford to hire in-home help. We can barely afford anything. We'll visit all the time. This is the best thing. There are words that, once spoken, rearranged the furniture in a room. The room was my life. The furniture was my place in it. And the word was burden. Tara said it, soft and careful, like putting a glass down on a table only to realize the glass is a grenade. You're a burden, Henry, she said. Not on purpose, but it is what it is. I felt something inside me fold up like a paper map. Not anger first. No, that came later. First came the quiet. The quiet is what lets a man see the whole shape of a thing. I nodded. Okay, I said. I stood. My chair made a small sound, a goodbye sound. When do you want me to go? As soon as we can arrange it, Mark said. He couldn't look at me. I'll pack today, I said. My voice didn't shake. Carpenters learn to hold their hands still even when the house is on fire. I took the green suitcase from under the bed. I put in 5 shirts, the good sweater with the leather patches at the elbows, my shaving kit, and the photo of Linda at the county fair with cotton candy on her lip. I added the small wooden box she gave me on our 40th anniversary with our initials burned on top. H+L. I closed the suitcase gently. Then I took out a second thing, a black notebook with daisy stickers. The passwords, the account numbers, the loan agreement Mark signed, the deed to my old shop, which I still owned because I had never gotten around to selling it after Linda got sick. I slid that notebook into the inside pocket of my jacket. I didn't tell them that part. Before lunch, I went for a walk. I stopped at the bakery where the owner, Mrs. Alvarez, always gave me a day-old roll for free because I fixed her broken door hinge last spring. She saw my suitcase. Going somewhere, Mr. Henry? Seems I am, I said. The roll felt warm in my hand. Do you know a good lawyer? Not fancy, just decent. She wiped her hands on her apron. My cousin's daughter, Ava Coleman. She helped me when the old landlord tried to raise rent by 70%. She's tough, but kind. You want her number? Kind and tough. That's the whole dream of a person, isn't it? I took the number and stuffed it with my roll into my coat. I didn't go back home right away. I went to the park. I sat on a bench and watched a boy in a red shirt learn to ride a bike. He fell, cried, got back up. His dad jogged beside him saying, I've got you, buddy. The boy wobbled, and then, all at once, he didn't. He was riding. That's what fatherhood feels like on the good days. Your hands hovering, not touching, your heart running beside. When I finally returned, Tara was on the phone with Willow Creek, her voice clipped and efficient. Mark stood by the sink scrolling through his emails. They looked busy. I looked invisible. I boiled water for tea. No one asked me how my walk was. When the kettle sang, I poured and took my cup to the porch. I dialed the number on the small white slip. Ava Coleman, attorney. She answered on the second ring. Ava Coleman. My name is Henry Miller, I said. I need help. My family wants to put me in a home. There was silence, then a steady voice. Okay, Mr. Miller. Start at the start. So I did. I told her about the year with Mark and Tara. I told her about the loan to Mark's small business. I told her about Linda, about the shop deed, about the accounts. I told her the word they used. I told her I was packing a suitcase like a child sent to stay with a stranger. She let me talk until I ran out of words. Then she said, I'm sorry. That was cruel. But we're not here to measure pain. We're here to make a plan. Do you want to keep control of your medical choices and your money? Do you want to stay safe? Do you want to teach them something without destroying yourself? Yes, I said. My voice felt new. Good, she said. We'll do this clean. No games. Paper. Structure. We'll document the loan, secure it, set timelines, and if they won't respect them, we'll collect. We'll also move your assets to a trust so they can't be touched by anyone but you and the trustee you choose. Do you trust anyone? Linda, I said, and then laughed, because grief is a mean comedian. My neighbor George, maybe. He's 79 and drives like a slow storm. But he's honest. Honest is what we need, Ava said. Come to my office tomorrow morning. Bring your notebook. Bring the loan paper and any receipts. Bring the deed to the shop. Bring identification. We'll set this up. I slept that night in the guest room for the last time, listening to the dryer thump and the house settle. Memories crept in like cats, quiet and all-tale. Linda's singing while she packed picnic baskets. Mark's tiny shoes lined up under the bench. The day we hung the porch swing. The night I felt the house tilt and didn't know until later it was because our family was shifting, breaking, reforming into a shape I didn't recognize. In the morning, I left early with my suitcase and my black notebook. I wrote a note on the fridge, going to the park. Back later. Love, Dad. It wasn't a lie. I did pass the park on the way to Ava's office downtown, in a building with high ceilings and a receptionist who smiled with her whole face. Ava was young, yes, but her eyes looked like someone who had seen a lot and learned from it. Her office had plants that were alive. On her wall there was a photo of her grandmother, silver-haired and stern, holding a sign that said we keep each other safe. I trusted that photo immediately. She made me coffee just the way I like it, black and hot. We spread my papers like maps. She read every line, asked careful questions, wrote notes in a neat hand. Okay, she said finally. Here is the path. She explained the trust, simple, revocable for now, but with strong guardrails. She explained naming a trustee. My neighbor George said yes when I called from the lobby, surprised but pleased, like I'd asked him to be captain of a little ship. She explained how to transfer accounts into the trust, how to change the beneficiaries legally, so no one could move things without me. She explained how the $25,000 loan to Mark could be secured by a lien against his business assets and by a confession of judgment if he defaulted. She showed me words that were clean and sharp. Tools, not weapons. You're not stealing from them, she said. You're protecting what is yours and enforcing what they signed. You're building a fence, not lighting a fire. We signed things. We notarized. We made copies. Her paralegal, a man with a kind face and a scar on his chin, walked me through setting up alerts so I'd know if anyone tried to touch the accounts. We filed a UCC-1 financing statement on Mark's business interest. We changed the shop's insurance. We switched my direct deposit for Social Security into the trust account. We arranged for a letter to go out a week from that day, clear, polite, final, explaining the secured loan, the repayment schedule, and the actions that would follow if payments weren't made. Not because we want to scare them, Ava said, but because adults deserve real information. I left her office lighter. Not happy, no, but steadier. Like I'd moved from standing in rain to standing under a roof. On the sidewalk, I saw a little boy crying because his ice cream fell. His mom crouched, scooped up the cone, tossed it, and wiped his cheeks with her sleeve. We'll get another, she said. Simple. Kind. The world still had people like that. I held on to the idea like a rail. At home, Tara looked surprised to see me with my suitcase. Willow Creek has an opening tomorrow, she said, avoiding my eyes. We can do paperwork tonight. All right, I said. Thank you for arranging it. Mark hovered in the doorway. He looked at my suitcase, then at my hands. I wondered if he saw the carpenter in them, the man who built his crib and his first bookcase and the little wooden airplane he hit the ceiling with over and over. Maybe he did. Maybe he didn't. Either way, he said nothing. That evening, they handed me forms. I signed the ones about my medical history. I left blank the one that gave Tara control of my finances. Oh, she said lightly. We'll need that later. We'll talk later, I said, equally light. I'm tired. I slept at Willow Creek that night to adjust. It wasn't the worst place. The hallways smelled like lemon cleaner and meatloaf. A nurse named Deb braided the hair of a lady who kept forgetting she was 85. I'm 19. The lady said every 5 minutes, laughing like bells. Deb just smiled and braided again. People forget a lot at the end of life. I didn't want to be one of them. The next morning, I signed the last of my trust papers in Ava's office and moved the rest of my accounts. I had always liked the clean feel of doing a job right. Measure twice, cut once. This felt like that. Not revenge with a knife, but revenge with a ruler. When Ava asked if I wanted to send the letter right away, I surprised myself. No, I said. Make it a week from today. I want to give them 7 days to be kind. Kind? Ava asked. Kind, I said. Not to me. To anyone. I want to see if they are just tired and scared, or if they are something else. Ava looked at me for a long second and nodded. Okay, Mr. Miller. 1 week. Those 7 days were long. I made friends with a man named Ralph at Willow Creek who used to be a firefighter. He had a picture of a Dalmatian in his wallet and called everyone Chief. He liked to play checkers and tell stories about roofs he climbed and babies he carried down ladders. We ate Jell-O and watched game shows with the volume too high. On the 3rd day, Emma visited with a card she made that said, "You are not a burden," in bubble letters with glitter. She whispered, "Mom said not to show you, but I don't care." I cried a little and pretended it was allergies. I told her that kindness is never a secret. Even if people don't clap for it, I said, it claps back later. On the 6th day, Mark came alone. He stood by the window, hands in his pockets. "How are you, Dad?" he asked in a voice I didn't recognize. "I'm okay," I said. "How's the business?" He swallowed. "We're working on it." "Good," I said. We didn't talk about money. We didn't talk about the loan. I looked at him and tried to see the boy on my workbench again, the kid with sawdust on his eyelashes. I found him for a second, and then he vanished. On the 7th morning, I woke early. Birds argued outside like they were voting. The lemon cleaner smell was stronger because it was Saturday. I sat with my coffee and my notebook. At exactly 9 a.m., Ava's letter went out by courier and email. The subject line was simple, regarding secured loan and notice of actions. The body of the letter was kinder than it needed to be. The attachments were not. At 9:42 a.m., while I rinsed my mug, my phone vibrated. Not once. Many times. A storm of messages. I didn't look yet. I wanted to breathe first. At 10:03 a.m., the courier delivered the physical letter to Mark and Tara's door. At 10:04, their bank began actioning the notices the letter referenced. At 10:05, the business account reflected the lien. The funds were swept to a secured account under the trust as repayment began. The line of credit that had my name as guarantor closed. The personal accounts that had my funds as collateral released me and locked them pending verification. The total available balance they could spend before the weekend hit was 0. And now we are back where I started. Monday morning sun sliding across their kitchen like a slow golden knife, the letter on the table, their phones buzzing like hornets, their faces turning the color of unpainted walls. I stood in the hallway, invisible as ever, and watched the truth arrive in their hands. Mark tore open the envelope. Tara grabbed the paper. Their eyes jumped line to line. "What did he do?" Tara whispered. Mark's mouth opened and closed. He looked up, his eyes searching the house, and for the first time in a long time, he saw me. Really saw me. His face was a question mark. I stepped forward, just one step, and that's when the front door shook, 3 heavy knocks that made the picture frames tremble. A second envelope slid under the door with a soft, final whisper. The room went silent. Mark bent to pick it up with a hand that wasn't steady. He turned the envelope over, and in that tight, held breath, the exact second before the next domino fell, every bad word, every quiet sigh, every time they forgot I was a person and not a problem, filled the room like smoke. He broke the seal. The paper inside crackled, and as both of their phones screamed again with alerts, I watched their eyes read the first line. Right as the porch camera chimed and a voice outside said, clear and official, "Mr. and Mrs. Miller, please open the door." Mark didn't open the door right away. His hand hovered above the knob like it was hot metal. Tara stood behind him, clutching the letter so tightly it wrinkled in her fist. I watched from the hallway, pretending to adjust the framed photo of Emma's last birthday. My heart was steady, but my mind was racing like a storm behind glass. The knocking came again, firm, deliberate. Whoever was outside wasn't going away. Mark finally twisted the knob. 2 men in suits stood on the porch. Not police, lawyers. One of them held a black folder, the other a silver tablet. "Mr. and Mrs. Miller," the taller one said. "We're here on behalf of Coleman and Associates regarding the immediate execution of lien terms for your outstanding debt." Tara blinked. "Debt? What debt?" The man flipped open the folder. "The secured loan of $25,000 owed to Henry Miller, now represented by the Miller Family Trust, as per the terms of the signed contract." "I never," Mark stammered, reaching for the paper. The lawyer handed him a copy. It had his signature, clear as day. I watched his face lose color, inch by inch. He knew what it meant. He had signed that agreement a year ago when he begged for money to keep his company alive. The other lawyer, polite but firm, spoke next. Your business assets are temporarily frozen pending repayment. Additionally, your joint accounts have been placed under audit protection due to misreported transfers from Henry Miller's estate funds. Tara gasped. Estate funds? What is going on? Mark turned slowly toward me. Dad, what did you do? I didn't answer. Not yet. I just looked at him, long enough for him to feel every unsaid word between us. The taller lawyer continued. We'll allow you 24 hours to review the documents. After that, we proceed with collection and legal filing. He handed over a final envelope, nodded courteously, and left. The door clicked shut. The silence that followed was heavy enough to bend the air. Tara dropped onto the couch. All our money is gone, she whispered. Everything. The savings, the business, the... Mark slammed the folder shut. No, it can't be. He turned to me. Dad, tell me this is some kind of mistake. I took a slow breath. It's no mistake. Tara shot up, her voice sharp. You did this? You took our money. No, I said quietly. I took back what was mine. Mark's jaw clenched. You could have talked to me. I did, I said. Every day, for months. I tried to remind you that family means taking care of each other. You called me a burden. You wanted me gone. So I went. But before I did, I made sure I wouldn't be treated like an old coat you could hang in a closet and forget. Mark's voice cracked. Dad, it wasn't like that. Then tell me what it was like, I said. Because from where I stood, it looked like I stopped being your father and became an inconvenience with a heartbeat. He didn't answer. He couldn't. Tara sat down, rubbing her temples, whispering something I couldn't hear. I picked up my suitcase from the corner of the hallway. I'll be at Willow Creek, I said. Don't worry. I won't be your burden anymore. As I walked out, Emma came running down the stairs. Grandpa, she called. Where are you going? I froze. Her voice was the only one that still sounded like home. I'm going somewhere nice for a little while, I said, forcing a smile. Somewhere with a big garden. You can visit whenever you want. She looked up at her father, then back at me. Did I do something wrong? That question split something inside me. I knelt and hugged her tight. No, sweetheart. You did everything right. You just keep being kind. That's how you win at life, okay? She nodded, tears shining in her eyes. Okay. I left before mine could fall. Willow Creek wasn't the prison I expected. It was peaceful, quiet mornings, soft piano music during meals, and nurses who smiled like they meant it. I spent my first few days fixing things. Loose door handles, squeaky wheels, broken latches. Old habits don't die, they just wait for a hammer. Every afternoon, I'd sit in the garden with Ralph and play checkers. Sometimes we'd talk about the past. Sometimes we'd just sit in silence, letting the sun warm the parts of us life had cooled. But inside, I was still watching. Waiting. Ava called me on Thursday. They've contacted me, she said. Tried to negotiate. They want partial reversal. And what did you say? I said no. Not yet. You told me this wasn't about money. It was about lessons. Do you still mean that? I looked out the window at an old man helping a woman feed the birds. Yes, I said. But not to hurt them. I just want them to remember. Good, Ava said. Because the next step is where they start realizing how deep this really goes. That evening, I turned on the small TV in the lounge. The local business news was on. And there it was, Mark's company, Miller and Company. Interiors, under temporary receivership review. The anchor said it like it was a weather report, but I knew how cold that storm would feel. The camera cut to a clip of Mark leaving his office building, chased by reporters. His face looked older, smaller. I couldn't help the ache in my chest. Tara stood beside him, her expression hard. She was the kind of woman who'd rather drown than admit she was wrong. I wondered if she even realized yet that it wasn't revenge I wanted, it was acknowledgement. Ralph nudged me. That your boy? Used to be, I said softly. He squinted at me. You getting any satisfaction from this? I smiled faintly. Not yet. But maybe someday he'll understand what it feels like to be left behind. Ralph laughed dryly. You sound like every man who ever got underestimated. 3 days later, I got a visitor. Mark. He looked thinner. His eyes were tired, his tie loose. Dad, he said quietly, can we talk? I gestured to the chair across from me. He sat, hunched forward like a boy caught stealing candy. I don't know where to start, he said. Start with sorry, I said. It's the only word that fits before truth. He swallowed hard. I'm sorry. For what? For everything. For calling you a burden. for treating you like a problem instead of a person. I don't know what came over me, Dad. I was stressed. I felt trapped. The business was failing, and You wanted control, I said, finishing for him. And I was the easiest thing to control. He nodded slowly. You're right. But please, Dad, Tara and we can't lose everything. Emma, she doesn't understand what's happening. Emma's the only one who does, I said. She's the only one who saw me when everyone else stopped looking. Mark wiped his face. I don't expect you to forgive me. But please, can you talk to your lawyer? I'll pay it back. I'll do anything. I studied him for a moment. His eyes were desperate, but behind them, I saw something I hadn't seen in years, humility. I'll think about it, I said. But you need to understand something first. Money can be earned again. Trust can't. He nodded, staring at his hands. I know. We sat in silence. The garden breeze slipped through the open window, carrying the faint sound of laughter from the hallway. Then, quietly, I said, Mark, there's one thing you should know. He looked up, hopeful. What is it? I didn't take everything. He frowned. What do you mean? I left one account untouched. Emma's college fund. That one's hers. Mark's eyes filled with tears. You did that for her. For her, I said. And for Linda. She would have wanted that. He nodded, unable to speak. Then, before he left, he said something I didn't expect. Dad, I wish Mom was here. She'd know how to fix this. I smiled faintly. She is here. You just stopped listening long enough to hear her. He didn't understand right away, but he would. As he walked away down the hall, I felt a strange calm settle over me. Maybe this was what justice felt like when you didn't let anger drive it. Steady, quiet, earned. But that peace didn't last. Because the very next morning, I got a call from Ava. Her voice was sharp, almost trembling. Henry, she said, we have a problem. What kind of problem? She paused. Tara moved something. There's been an unauthorized transfer attempt. She's trying to access Emma's fund. I stood up, heart pounding. What? She used Mark's credentials and tried to pull the money into a private account. My chest tightened. Can we stop it? Yes, Ava said. I froze the account immediately. But it means they're desperate. And desperate people make dangerous choices. I stared out the window, the morning sunlight cutting through the glass like a blade. I thought the worst was over. I thought the lesson had landed. But I was wrong. Because that same afternoon, I got an unexpected visitor, one I didn't expect to ever see again. It was Tara, and she wasn't there to apologize. She was there to make a deal. Tara stood in the doorway of Willow Creek like a storm dressed in silk. Her hair was perfect, her perfume sharp enough to make the air nervous. She wasn't holding flowers or an apology. She was holding a black handbag clutched so tight her knuckles were white. The nurse at the front desk looked at her, then at me. Mr. Miller, you know her? I nodded slowly. Unfortunately, yes. Tara walked toward me, heels tapping like hammers against the linoleum floor. Her smile was thin and cold. We need to talk, she said. I gestured toward the garden. Outside. I don't like shouting in front of people who already have enough to worry about. She didn't argue. We walked out to the courtyard, where sunlight sat gently on the benches and the sound of wind chimes made everything feel too peaceful for what was about to happen. She didn't sit. You had no right to do what you did, she started. You've destroyed everything Mark and I built. I looked up at her calmly. Everything you built? With my money. Her nostrils flared. You offered it. I offered help, I said. Not a blank check. There's a difference. Tara took a step closer. Do you know what you've done to your son's reputation? His business? Our home. I met her eyes. You mean the same home where you called me a burden? She flinched, just barely. Then she straightened. I was frustrated. I didn't mean it like that. Yes, you did, I said softly. People always mean it the first time they say it. She opened her bag, pulled out a folded stack of papers, and dropped them on the bench between us. Fine. You win. You got your little revenge. Now sign this and release the accounts. We'll make sure you're comfortable here for the rest of your life. I didn't touch the papers. What's this? A withdrawal of lien, she said. Ava Coleman will stop the process if you sign. You'll get a small monthly allowance. We'll handle your bills, your care. I laughed. You want me to sell back my freedom for pocket money? Tara's eyes hardened. Don't make this ugly, Henry. It's already ugly, I said. You made it that way when you tried to steal from Emma's college fund. Her mouth dropped open. You know about that? I know everything, I said. And I also know that account is locked tighter than your conscience. She took a deep breath, her composure cracking. Listen to me, she hissed. You don't understand what it's like. The bills, the mortgage, the debt, we're drowning. I was just trying to save my family. By stealing from your daughter's future? I asked quietly. She looked away, her jaw trembling. You think this makes you some kind of hero? You've ruined us. You've made your own son hate you. I shook my head. No. I made him see what happens when you forget who raised you. For a moment, she didn't speak. Then she leaned forward, lowering her voice. If you don't sign that paper, Henry, I'll make sure no one visits you here. Not Mark. Not Emma. No one. You'll rot alone in this place. And when you die, no one will even claim your body. Her words hung in the air like poison. I looked at her for a long time, not as my daughter-in-law, but as a stranger standing in front of the man she underestimated. Finally, I stood up. Tara, I said quietly, you've already made sure of that. Because the moment you threatened me, you signed your own paper. She frowned. What do you mean? You just gave me all the proof I need. Her eyes darted around. Proof? I pointed toward the small black camera bolted under the garden awning, the same one that recorded all visitor conversations for safety and transparency. A small red light blinked steadily. She froze. Oh, I said softly, don't worry. It's not live audio, but the nursing home records all visits for security. They'll have your little speech on file. I'll make sure my lawyer gets a copy. Her face went pale. You wouldn't. I already did, I said. They back up everything at the end of the day. Her mouth opened, then closed again. She grabbed her bag, trembling with fury. You'll regret this, she spat. No, I said. I already did my regretting years ago. She turned and stormed off. Her perfume lingered long after she left, sharp and bitter, like burnt sugar. That night, I sat by my window, watching the moonlight stretch over the garden. Ralph shuffled in, holding 2 mugs of cocoa. You look like a man who just chased off a ghost, he said. Close enough, I muttered. He handed me a mug. Was it family again? Something like that. He nodded. Family's funny. They can love you so much they suffocate you, or use you till you can't breathe. I chuckled quietly. You're not wrong. He took a sip. So what now? I stared at the night sky. Now? I wait. For what? For truth to catch up, I said. It always does. The next few days were quiet. Too quiet. Mark didn't visit. Neither did Tara. Not even a call. I tried not to expect one, but every time the phone rang at the front desk, my heart betrayed me. Then, one evening, Ava showed up. No appointment, no warning. She walked in wearing her usual calm-like armor. Mr. Miller, she said, we need to talk privately. We went to the conference room. She laid a file on the table and opened it. Inside were photos, transaction logs, and a printed email. Tara tried something stupid again, she said. I sighed. What now? She forged your signature, Ava said bluntly. She attempted to authorize a reverse transfer under the claim that you were mentally unfit. I blinked. She said what? Ava nodded grimly. She's trying to file a petition for guardianship. If it goes through, she can legally control your trust and finances. My stomach dropped. She's not going to stop, is she? No, Ava said. But we're not either. She pulled out another document. I already filed a counterclaim with medical proof of your mental fitness, plus the video recording from Willow Creek. That recording alone will bury her case. But, she hesitated, we can go further. How far? I asked. If we press charges for fraud and attempted financial abuse, she could face jail time. It's your choice. I stared at the papers. Part of me wanted peace. The other part, the part that remembered Linda's voice whispering, don't let them break you, wanted justice. Finally, I said, do it. Ava nodded. Consider it done. The following week felt like the calm before thunder. The investigation moved fast. Lawyers, banks, and family secrets all started spilling into daylight. Mark called me once. His voice shook. Dad, I didn't know she did that. I swear. I thought we could fix this together. You can't fix what you refuse to see, I said quietly. I love her, he said, almost pleading. She's my wife. I loved your mother, I replied. But I never let her turn me into someone I wasn't. He was silent. Then he said, Emma keeps asking when you're coming home. Tell her soon, I said. But not yet. 2 days later, news broke that Tara had been arrested for attempted financial fraud and forgery. It was all over the local paper. Wife of local business owner accused in elder abuse investigation. I didn't smile. I didn't celebrate. I just sat on the porch of Willow Creek, watching the sunset burn orange behind the trees. That's when Mark showed up again, not in a suit this time, not with pride in his posture. He looked like a boy who'd been running through rain with no umbrella. He sat down next to me without a word. For a long time, we just watched the light fade. Finally, he whispered, "I didn't know it would go this far." "I know," I said. "I lost everything," he said. "The business, the house. Tara's facing charges. Emma's confused. I don't even know how to explain it to her." "Tell her the truth," I said. "That's the only thing kids believe anyway." He nodded. Then, after a pause, "What happens now?" I turned to look at him. "Now? We rebuild. But not the way you think." He frowned. "How?" "By learning what actually matters." He looked away. "And what's that?" "People," I said simply. "Not things. Not money. Just people." He rubbed his eyes. "You're a better man than me, Dad." I smiled faintly. "No, just an older one." He let out a shaky laugh. Can we try again? You and me?" I put a hand on his shoulder. "We already started." For the first time in a long while, I saw my son, not the businessman, not the husband, just my boy. We sat there for a while, saying nothing. The sky went dark, but something in my heart finally felt light. But as I went to bed that night, my phone buzzed. A new voicemail from Ava. Her voice was urgent. "Henry, it's Ava. You need to call me back immediately. Something new just came up about your late wife's insurance policy. You're not going to believe who tried to access it." My hand froze. Tara was already behind bars. So who was it now? The morning light spilled through the blinds in thin, shaky lines, like it didn't know whether to stay or run. I sat on the edge of my bed at Willow Creek, staring at my phone, replaying Ava's voicemail again and again. "Henry, it's Ava. You need to call." "Henry, it's Ava. You need to call me back immediately. Something new just came up about your late wife's insurance policy. You're not going to believe who tried to access it." My heart thumped slow and heavy. I called her back right away. She picked up on the first ring. "Mr. Miller," she said, her voice brisk but careful. "I need you to listen closely." "I'm listening," I said. "The system flagged a login attempt last night on your late wife's insurance account. Someone tried to reset the beneficiary information, the same one tied to Linda Miller's life insurance payout." I frowned. "That account's been untouched for years. Who would even think to look there?" "That's what we're trying to find out," she said. "The login came from a different state, Chicago, but the credentials used were linked to your son's old business email." My chest tightened. "Mark, possibly," Ava said carefully. "But I'm not jumping to conclusions yet. He may not even know. The attempt was masked through a VPN. Could have been anyone who had access to his old files. But who would know enough to even try?" I asked. Ava exhaled. "That's the question. We'll trace it. I just wanted you aware in case anything strange happens. Calls, letters, emails." "Thank you," I said quietly. "You've done more for me than most of my own family." "Just doing my job," she said. But I heard something in her tone, something more personal. "And, Henry, don't let this steal your peace again. You've come too far." I promised her I wouldn't. But peace is a tricky thing. It doesn't sit still when old ghosts start knocking. That afternoon, I took my coffee to the garden. The sky was clean and blue, birds hopping around like they had somewhere better to be. Ralph joined me, dragging his chair beside mine. "You look like a man who just found termites in his house," he said. I smiled faintly. "Worse. Someone tried to steal from a dead woman." He whistled low. "That's cold. Colder than I ever thought my family could be." Ralph took a sip of his tea. "Family'll surprise you both ways, brother. Sometimes they save your life. Sometimes they light the match." He was right. And deep down, I wasn't ready to believe Mark could have lit this one. But doubt is like a splinter. You can't stop touching it, even when it hurts. 2 days later, Mark showed up again. No car, no fancy clothes, just a tired man with too many miles in his eyes. He brought a box of donuts from the bakery I loved. "Remember these?" he asked softly. "Yeah," I said, taking one. "Your mom used to steal the chocolate ones before breakfast." He smiled faintly, but there was something forced about it. We sat in silence for a while. I noticed his hands trembling slightly. "You okay?" I asked. He hesitated. "Dad, something's happening. I need to tell you before you hear it from someone else." My stomach sank. "What is it?" He rubbed his face. "It's about Mom's insurance." I froze. "What about it?" I didn't do it, he said quickly. I swear to you I didn't. But someone used my old business login to try to access it. Ava told me. How did you know she told me? I asked. Because she called me first, he said. She thought I might have been hacked. And she's probably right. Someone's been digging into my old company files. I think I know who. I studied him. Who? He looked down. Tara's brother. The name hit me like a dull hammer. Ethan. He nodded. Yeah. She gave him access to our old business accounts last year to help with bookkeeping. I didn't realize until now how much he could still see. He's desperate for money. And when he heard about everything, he must have decided to try his luck. I shook my head. You should have cut ties with that family a long time ago. I know, he said. But I kept thinking I could fix things. That if I kept everyone calm, we'd survive it. You don't survive poison by pretending it's medicine, I said quietly. He looked up, eyes glassy. Dad, I think I might lose Emma. The court might give temporary custody to Tara's sister while the case is ongoing. I can't let that happen. I can't lose my daughter. His voice broke. I'd seen my son cry only twice. Once when his mother died, and now. Something in me cracked open again. Then fight, I said. Not with anger, but with truth. You've made mistakes, Mark. But you're still her father. You can rebuild. You just have to start standing for something again. He nodded, wiping his face. You really think I can fix this? I think you can try, I said. And that's more than you've done in years. He managed a small smile. I don't deserve you, Dad. Most people don't deserve second chances, I said. But life gives them anyway. You just have to know what to do when it does. Later that week, Ava called again. We traced the IP address from the insurance login, she said. You were right. It was Ethan. He used a company laptop registered under Mark's business. The authorities already questioned him, and he confessed. I closed my eyes. Relief and sadness tangled inside me. So it's over? Almost, she said. There's one more thing. He said he wasn't acting alone. My grip tightened. Who else? He wouldn't say a name. Just that someone told him where to look. That an insider said the old man wouldn't notice anyway. I stood up, pacing slowly. An insider? Ava hesitated. It could be anyone. Maybe someone at the bank, maybe. She didn't finish the sentence. Maybe family, I said flatly. I didn't say that, she replied carefully. You didn't have to. That night, sleep wouldn't come. The hall clock ticked loud enough to sound like footsteps. I kept thinking of Linda's laugh, how she used to call me her quiet hammer, gentle until I wasn't. By morning, I had made a decision. I called Ava. Prepare the documents, I said. We're moving everything. Every asset, every account, every deed, under full private protection. Emma's fund stays locked until she's 18, and no one touches a cent without my written approval. Understood, she said. You're done trusting them? I'm done letting love be a weakness, I said. 2 weeks passed. The storm began to quiet. Tara's brother was charged. Tara remained in custody. Mark was attending mandatory parenting evaluations to regain custody of Emma. One afternoon, I sat outside when a small voice called out behind me. Grandpa. Emma ran across the garden, her blonde ponytail bouncing. Mark followed slowly, holding 2 paper bags. I stood and opened my arms. She ran straight into them. I missed you, she said. I missed you more, I said, kissing her forehead. You growing taller every week? She giggled. Dad says I'm growing stronger too. I smiled. Good. You'll need both. Mark handed me one of the bags. Donuts again. Thought we'd make it a tradition. We sat together, eating quietly. For the first time, there wasn't tension, just 3 people sharing a moment that felt almost normal. Dad, Mark said after a while. Once this is all settled, would you ever consider coming to live with us again? Maybe not at the old house. Somewhere new. Somewhere peaceful. I looked at him. You mean that? He nodded. Yeah. I don't want Emma growing up thinking her grandfather lives in a nursing home because we pushed him there. I want her to know we made things right. I studied his face. Older now, humbler, human. I'll think about it, I said. Fair enough, he said with a faint smile. As they left that day, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope that maybe, just maybe, this story wouldn't end in bitterness. But that night, my phone rang again. Ava's voice was quiet, hesitant. Henry, there's one more issue. My heart sank. What now? There's been a sealed request filed under your name with the probate court. Someone's trying to declare your trust invalid, claiming you weren't of sound mind when you created it. I gripped the phone. Who would dare? A pause. Then Ava said the name that made my blood run cold. Your son, Mark. The phone slipped from my hand and hit the floor. I sat there, staring at the wall, at the framed picture of Linda smiling back at me, and whispered, "Not again." I didn't sleep that night. The clock on the wall ticked like a hammer inside my skull, and every sound in the hall, every creak, every shuffle, felt like betrayal with footsteps. Mark, my only son. After everything, I sat by the window of my small Willow Creek room, the one that smelled faintly of coffee and lemon polish, and stared into the darkness until the moon gave up and hid behind clouds. At 6:17 a.m., I called Ava. She answered immediately. "Mr. Miller? Tell me it's not true," I said, my voice rough and hollow. She hesitated. "It's true the petition was filed, but we don't know his reasons yet." "It could be." "Reasons?" I snapped. "What reason does a son have to stab his father twice?" Her voice softened. "Maybe it's not what it looks like. Let me speak to him first. I'll find out what he's planning. But you need to stay calm and do nothing for now, okay?" "Calm?" I whispered. That word stopped belonging to me the day they called me a burden. Still, I agreed to wait, because Ava had earned that trust. She was the only person left in this world who hadn't twisted kindness into leverage. 3 hours later, Mark showed up at Willow Creek again. He didn't look like a schemer. He looked like a man haunted by something heavier than guilt. He was still wearing yesterday's clothes, and his eyes were rimmed red, as if he hadn't slept either. When he saw me sitting on the porch, he froze. "Dad," he said quietly. "Why, Mark?" I asked. He sat down across from me, elbows on his knees, staring at his shoes. "You weren't supposed to find out yet." "That's not an answer." He rubbed his face. "I didn't file it to take your money. I swear. I did it because of Emma." I frowned. "Explain." She needs surgery, Dad. It's not life-threatening, but it's serious. Insurance won't cover all of it. I tried everything. I sold what was left of the business, the car, even the furniture. I'm out of options." My chest tightened. "So you decided to call your father crazy?" His voice cracked. "No. I thought if I could prove the trust was invalid, I could move some of the funds to help Emma. I wasn't going to steal it. I just panicked." He looked at me then, the same way he did when he was 12 and broke my favorite hammer, too scared to confess. Only this time, the crack he'd made wasn't in wood, it was in blood. For a long moment, I didn't say anything. The breeze pushed between us like a wall. Finally, I asked, "Why didn't you just come to me?" He whispered, "Because I thought you'd say no." I stared at him. "You were right." He winced. "Dad." "No," I said sharply. "Not because I wouldn't help her, but because you didn't even try to ask. You went behind my back. Again, after everything we just went through." He buried his face in his hands. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." I stood up, my voice steady but cold. "You've said that word so many times it's lost its meaning." He looked up at me, tears in his eyes. "Please, Dad. She's your granddaughter." I turned away, watching the sunlight flicker across the grass. "Emma will be taken care of," I said finally. "But not through lies. I'll handle it legally, directly with Ava. You'll stay out of it." He swallowed hard. "Does that mean you forgive me?" I shook my head slowly. "Forgiveness and trust are not the same thing, son. You can have the first, but the second you have to rebuild." He nodded weakly. "Okay." Then he left, shoulders slumped, hope leaking out of him like air from a punctured tire. I didn't watch him go. I just stood there until the nurse called me in for breakfast. A week later, Ava met me in her office again. She looked tired, her desk covered in files, her coffee cold. "We withdrew the guardianship petition," she said. "Mark signed a retraction yesterday morning. The court dismissed it." I nodded slowly. "Good." She studied me. "But you're not happy." "I'm too old for happiness," I said quietly. "I just want peace." She smiled faintly. "Then you'll like what I'm about to tell you." She handed me a manila envelope. Inside was a letter, notarized, stamped, and cleanly folded. It was from Mark. I opened it, expecting excuses. Instead, I found something else. "Dad, if you're reading this, it means Ava gave you my letter after the court dropped the petition. I know I don't deserve another chance, but I need to explain anyway. I didn't grow up thinking I'd ever hurt you. I wanted to be like you, steady, respected, strong. Somewhere along the line, I started chasing success instead of substance. Tara encouraged it, and I let her voice get louder than yours ever was. When Mom died, I saw how lonely you looked. But instead of helping, I got angry. I blamed you for leaving me with all the responsibilities. I took your money, your patience, and your love for granted. You were right to take it all back. I needed that wake-up call. Emma's surgery is scheduled for next month. I'll pay what I can, and if you still choose to help, I'll accept it with gratitude, not entitlement. I've started a new job, working construction, the same way you started. Maybe this is where I was meant to end up, back where I can build something real again. If you ever decide to come home, there will be a place for you. Not out of pity, out of respect. Thank you for still being my father, even when I stopped being your son. Love, Mark. When I finished reading, I sat there in silence for a long time. Ava didn't say a word. She didn't need to. Finally, I looked up. You know, I said quietly, my wife used to tell me something. She'd say, love isn't soft, Henry. It's sandpaper. It smooths people down whether they like it or not. Ava smiled gently. Sounds like she was a wise woman. She was, I said, and she'd probably tell me to stop holding grudges and buy my son dinner. So will you. I chuckled. We'll see. 2 weeks later, I did. Mark invited me to his small new apartment. Nothing fancy, just a rented place near the construction site. Emma opened the door, grinning. Grandpa, I made spaghetti. The smell hit me before I even stepped in. Tomatoes, garlic, and forgiveness. We sat together at a wobbly little table, eating off mismatched plates. It wasn't the house they used to have, but it was full of something better, honesty. Halfway through dinner, Emma tugged on my sleeve. Grandpa, yes, sweetheart. Dad says you're a hero. I smiled. I'm not a hero. I just stopped letting people forget who I am. She giggled. That's kind of the same thing. I looked across the table at Mark. For the first time in years, his eyes didn't dodge mine. They met them, steady, thankful, human. And in that moment, I realized something. Revenge wasn't the end of this story. It was the beginning of change. Sometimes people need to lose everything to remember what they already had. I had lost a home, a family, trust, but somehow, through all that breaking, something new was built. Something real. I reached for my glass, raised it slightly, and said, to second chances. Mark lifted his, smiling. To second chances. And as we clinked our glasses together, I heard Linda's voice in my head, soft, proud, and warm. See, Henry, you built one more porch after all.